This is Bill Varney with your Fish the Surf fishing report for August 7th. Thursday, August 7th is already here. It's great to be back from my trip at Cedros Island. Had some unbelievable fishing down there, and I'm working on a 4-part series about fishing at Cedros Island. How to get there, where to stay, how to rig, what fish to catch, all that information. Should have that series out in a few weeks here. So surf fishing continues to be great while I was gone. Even seems to get better every day. Really fantastic. So let's move our way up to Santa Barbara. Great change in Santa Barbara with cleaner water for a change up in that area. And for anglers in the know, for anglers who've taken the time to figure out the tides, figure out the right baits, and find areas with less kelp, have done very well on halibut in the Santa Barbara area over the last 2 weeks. Really all the way from La Conchita all the way to Gaviota. No particularly good spot, but those grunion runs have continued to bring those halibut closer to shore. Anglers using things like the fluke, like the white and the olive color fluke, along with hard baits like battle stars and lucky crafts, have really had the best luck up there for sure. Another thing about Santa Barbara is there's been a lot of perch. We've really seen the perch all along the coast, but what we've really seen the last week is how much bigger the perch are, not only in Santa Barbara, but we've seen them in the South Bay and all the way down in San Diego. So the fall perch are getting ready for their fall spawn. These bigger perch are going to come out from the rocks. They're going to do some spawning probably over the next 60 days or so. So don't be surprised if you get some 12, 13, maybe even 14-inch barred surf perch in the surf. Really good fishing for their perch all along the coast for sure. One striper was reported caught up in Santa Barbara, just north of the harbor this week. Not a big one, but one caught on a sand crab. And then the other news up there was a 33-inch white sea bass caught on the fluke, once again north of the Santa Barbara wharf there. Has been the best spot there for those white sea bass. As just like the halibut, they come in and out to follow those grunion. So fishing continues good in Santa Barbara. One thing about Santa Barbara is they've seen tons of Corbina up there, but really none are biting. But there's no reason to fret whatsoever. The season for Santa Barbara Corbina is coming up. Really in the next 60 days, particularly in September and October, are really the best months for Corbina fishing. For really the biggest Corbina on the coast migrate their way up there. So we're going to see that over the rest of the summer here as those fish follow food, migrate north. And places like Freya, La Conchita, Henry's Beach, the Sandspit, sometimes on East Beach in Santa Barbara there, all of those spots in the next month or so should turn on with these bigger Corbina. Remember, these Corbina have a lot of food out there, so be careful about what you're picking for them for sand crabs. Try to find the best bait you can for them, and sand crabs, bloodworms, and ghost shrimp are really going to be your go-to baits in Santa Barbara here, starting really in about 2 or 3 weeks now, when we begin to see these big fish get hungry up there. So let's move on down to Ventura. Man, the entire Ventura coast has been good for Corbina fishing. There's been no particular spot that's better than another. It's been very good down there for anglers using bloodworms, and in particular for using sand crabs down there, the soft shell sand crabs. Now, anglers fishing down there also with fly imitations of crabs have worked very well done in that area. So obviously the Corbina are really keying in on those sand crabs still down at the beach down there. One thing to remember about those sand crabs is that, and the Corbina themselves, you'll probably find most of those crabs at a higher tide, although this time of year they will begin showing up on those at low tide on those sandbars offshore. But one of the very best times to fish for Corbina, and this is what the top anglers are doing, is from a low tide going up to a high tide. So if you have a morning low tide going to a high tide, or an evening, afternoon low tide going to evening high tide, those are really the best times for Corbina fishing, because Corbina surf each one of those waves successfully in closer and closer to shore in order to find sand crabs. And as that tide is coming up, they're feeding during that period, they're coming toward you, and really they're a lot less wary than they would be at other tide periods during the day. So Corbina fishing along there remains very good. A nice striper was caught in Ventura this week, along with, once again, a lot of these barred surf perch. Really good surf perch fishing down there for perch all the way up to 13 inches. Anglers are using things like mussel, sand crabs, lugworms, and bloodworms for catching those perch. So that fishing continues really good in Ventura. And once again, you know, Ventura is like kind of in the middle of that super highway for the Corbina going north and the Corbina coming south in the spring. So look for it to continue to be good Corbina fishing in Ventura. So as we make our way down to the South Bay, you know, in the South Bay, there are so many sand crabs. Not only are there crabs from Redondo all the way up to Marina del Rey, Santa Monica Pier, but really in that El Segundo, El Porto area, there's so many sand crabs in that area that it's almost uncomfortable at certain tides to walk on the beach. They poke you so much. So that is a really good sign. But seeing that and knowing that we've got billions upon billions of sand crabs along the coast, once again, the anglers are being most successful on the big fish in the surf, whether those are spotfin, even striper and Corbina, are the ones who are going out ahead of time, collecting sand crabs, getting 1 or 2 dozen soft shell sand crabs, and being prepared to fish a sand crab over and over and over again on the beach, very close to shore with very light line for those big Corbina. A lot of the anglers are fishing an 1/8 ounce or a 1/2 ounce sliding sinker now that the surf has been small, and fishing a 4 or 6 pound fluorocarbon leader that's anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. That seems to be the most effective in the surf this time of year for those Corbina. So the South Bay continues to be good, and I mean really all the way from Redondo, Hermosa, Manhattan, El Segundo, El Porto, Del Rey. That's all been kicking out a lot of these really big yellowfin croaker. You know, we've seen this for about a year now in that zone. A lot of big yellowfin croaker. We talked about a lot of perch in that area, an occasional halibut, Corbina, and now and then a striper up there. So that whole zone has been really, really good, and it continues to be good. I don't see that slowing down whatsoever at all. And then the other top area there in the South Bay, and it just continues to be the best spot, not a surprise at all to me having grown up there, is Hermosa Beach has had some really, really good Corbina fishing with some of the bigger fish, really somewhere between the Redondo breakwater at King Harbor there and the Hermosa Pier. That whole zone along there has been good. So check all of that out, and once again, try to collect those crabs ahead of time or get some bloodworms. Try something new down the surf. Remember, surf fish this time of year are beginning to transition from the baits that they were eating earlier in the year, all those sand crabs, to things like clams and worms and bloodworms and lugworms, mussels. All those different baits are going to begin to work here as we work our way through the month of August. So that's what's been going down in South Bay, continues to be good. And then when we make our way down to Orange County, well, first of all, you know, that Belmont shore zone, that zone from Belmont Pier to 72nd Street or Los Alamitos Harbor there, has been phenomenal for halibut fishing. No big ones that I saw out of the last week, but literally dozens of sublegals in there. So obviously those are all of the spawned halibut. I would presume that from the halibut that spawned early in the spring, these are all their offspring. They're all now like pancake size out there, which means that there's not only them there, there's other big ones around them there, and that will continue to be a good spot for fishing, really from the Belmont Pier all the way down past the Seal Beach Pier to the, what would be the north side or the west side of the Huntington Harbor. That whole zone is going to be good in there. And anglers who've done their best, the ones who've caught the biggest fish, and for sure one angler got the most fish in one day, have all been going into places like Huntington Harbor, Los Alamitos Bay, Long Beach, and catching live smelt, and then taking those smelt to the beach, anywhere Seal Beach and along that Belmont Shore area, and fishing those on the Carolina rig. It's been unbelievably effective for the anglers who put in the time to do that. That's one of the greatest ways to catch a big halibut at the beach, for sure. So Orange County continues to be good, and then that zone really from Surfside, but I would say more Bolsa Chica, all the way down to the Newport Harbor, so the Newport Jetties, the Huntington State Beach, the Huntington City Beach, and then all the way up into Bolsa Chica, has been very good for spotfin croaker fishing, Corbina fishing, and perch fishing in that zone. Didn't hear of any stripers this week down there, but of course a couple of weeks ago we had 2 stripers there. I'm sure they come in and out with the tides. So that continues to be really good fishing down in that zone. Once again, those soft sand crabs and the bloodworms have really seemed to work well. And then when we go farther into Orange County, down and down around the San Onofre area, fantastic fishing down there for spotfin croaker in particular, some really big ones, some 5 to 8 pounders down there, and those were caught on clams and on sand crabs. Now remember, the fish once again are transitioning from sand crab time to other food time. In October is when bean clams, those little tiny shells you see on the beach, that's when bean clams come to the surface and they spawn. So we're getting very close to the clam season, and that's why we're seeing fish like these big spotfin caught on those. In addition to that, there was a nice sheep's head caught on clams down there in that same area. So San Onofre over this summer has been kicking out some great fishing down there. A few Corbina, a lot of spotfin croaker, and a variety of other fish. Continues to be good down there. And then when we make our way down to San Diego, beaches like Pacific Beach, Mission Beach, they've really been dealing a lot with that kelp and eelgrass in and out of there. Anglers who've taken the time to get bait in advance, fish in between those areas of dirty water have been doing well down there. But really the big news for San Diego County this week came out of basically all of Carlsbad. Really from downtown Carlsbad all the way to the Ponto Jetty and everywhere in between, was really good fishing this week for Corbina, spotfin croaker, some big yellowfin croaker, a lot of perch in that area. It's been really, really good fishing down in that area, with a few halibut caught in that area too, and those have been caught on, once again, hard baits and on drop shot rigs. Both of those with the fluke have seemed to work really, really well in that area. But really the key to those fish this week, with the exception of the Corbina that were eating soft shell sand crabs, has been bloodworms down there. Bloodworms have worked really, really well for those spotfin croaker down there, and they continue to bite all along that whole zone. Right below the state park there has been good, down by Ponto has been good, and then all the way up by town there in Carlsbad has had some very, very good fishing. Now, if you're looking for bloodworms down in that area and some advice about surf fishing, check out Pacific Coast Bait and Tackle. Then I also always talk about the tackle shop in Santa Barbara, Hook, Line, and Sinker, another great place to get bait and also to get some really good advice on surf fishing. I only promote these tackle shops because they provide surf fishing bait, which we find so little of at other tackle shops, and also because they promote surf fishing and help our sport to keep going. They don't provide anything to me in return other than just friendly help when I go into their shop. So I really appreciate everything that they do. So just a couple last things to cover. Please sign up for my newsletter on the front of fishthesurf.com. Just sign up for the newsletter, put in your email address. We'll send you a newsletter once a week with just about everything about surf fishing and some great photographs in there. Also, please subscribe and like and share this with your friends on YouTube. I'd really appreciate that. And then remember that upcoming this weekend is the new moon. Is a full moon, which means that we have another grunion run. It's going to go Saturday through Tuesday, probably Sunday and Monday are going to be your best days. Now is the time to collect. Now is the time to get out there and get your 30. We probably have 1 or 2 more runs coming before all the grunion runs are over for the year. And now is a legal time to have 30 in possession, which you can use for both fishing on the beach for halibut, as we talked about with the Carolina rig, or you can fish on the bay for halibut, or you can fish on a boat. All grunion work great for almost every single fish out there. So that's really good news. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was your bait transition, just real quickly. This is the time of year, like we talked a few minutes ago, where fish transition from sand crabs to mussel, clams, legworms, and bloodworms. Be sure in your tackle and your bait box that you have not only sand crabs, but several other baits along with you to see what they're biting on that day. So if you need any surffish tackle at all, check out surffishtackle.com. And until next week when I see you right here, good luck on the beach.